she's entitled to a verdict in this case. And the citizens of Montgomery County, where this crime occurred, are entitled to a verdict in this case, and we will push forward to try to get that done and get justice done.
Leave all the women out of here. This is about Andrea Constant and inconsistencies in her stories. So we just want to thank everybody, his supporters, all the ones who stayed out here. We love you guys.
Well, the sexual assault trial of Bill Cosby ending this morning with no verdict. The judge declaring a mistrial after the jury said for a second time they were deadlocked. But Cosby's legal troubles are far from over. He remains charged, and the prosecutor plans to retry the case. Carissa Kranz is a defense attorney and former prosecutor, and Stephanie Willis is a former state prosecutor and criminal defense attorney. Okay, so first, let's just talk about what the defense did right, what the prosecution did wrong, Carissa, to not convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Cosby was indeed guilty.
Yeah, unfortunately, this case was laced with all sorts of inconsistencies. You know, we don't have any forensic evidence, and the jury just had reasonable doubt. And at the end of the day, the defense, you know, was able to prove that the state did not prove their case beyond any and all reasonable doubt. When you have a case that is filled with he said, she said, and no direct evidence, it's very hard to prove those cases.
This was a very hard case to prove.
And
that goes without saying.
And anytime you don't have a win, it's considered, anytime you don't have a conviction, it's considered a win by the defense.
It sure is, but it's not over. I mean, Stephanie, a hung jury doesn't end Cosby's legal troubles. He can still be retried on the same charges. He's still facing lawsuits filed by some of the 60 women who have accused him of sexual assault, rape, or sexual harassment. So how does a mistrial then affect these cases in the court of public opinion?
Well, essentially what happens when we have a mistrial here in this case is that it actually gives the DA Steele here in this case, another chance to retry the case, for them to bring it all back in together to decide what they did wrong, what they did right, and what they can do now to further on the case. And this is something that we have to remember. The case here is about the victims. The victim here is Andrea Constant, and she has a voice that needs to be heard. And, you know, DA Steele did a proper job in bringing this case before a jury so that she could have her voice heard.
Let's just talk about the fact that Cosby is 79 years old and where he will be when this likely does make it to a retrial. He'll be 80 years old. This could take 12 months from now. When jurors are told that the judge, you know, that they were deadlocked on Thursday, the judge actually told him to go back, come to an agreement on a verdict. I mean, the writing was pretty much, would you agree, Clarissa, on the wall, that this would end in a hung jury? And then what is going to prevent this from happening again at a second trial?
That's absolutely correct, that the writing was on the wall, that this was a hung jury, and the judge can't force a verdict. If the judge were to try to force a verdict, that would be considered coercion, and that would be overturned on appeal. So when a jury takes longer than the actual trial to come up with not come up with a decision, there's obviously a problem, and the panel is not agreeing. And for a future trial, there are a lot of issues laced. We still have the same inconsistencies, the same reasonable doubt, and, you know, you have a 79-year-old man who's in ailing health, not to mention the taxpayers' dollars to retry a case that's arguably not a danger to the community anymore. Bill Cosby is arguably not going to commit these offenses that are so remote in time again.
Stephanie, during the trial, the defense did admit to one thing, and that was that Cosby was unfaithful to his wife and that he, in fact, did have consensual sex with Andrea Constant. Now, contrary to Constant's testimony that it was forced sex, that admittal that he, in fact, did have sex with this woman and he was unfaithful to his wife. How much did that help the defense, do you believe, admit the affair and perhaps convince those jurors that this wasn't rape?
Well, as a prosecutor, as a former prosecutor, I'm looking at the fact that this may have helped them a little bit. However, it helps my case because in essence, you admitted that the act did happen. The act did occur. However, we have to also consider the fact that even though there may have been past transgressions between Andrea Constant and Bill Cosby, it all comes down to that one night, that particular evening when she said no, when she did not provide her consent.
Right.
So that's something that, you know, is very key here for the prosecution to key in on. And another thing, you know, we also have to consider her credibility. And I believe that she did a great job, even though the defense was trying to harp on the fact that, you know, it took her a year to, you know, to make the complaint to a police officer. However, she came back and she decided that she wanted to pursue this case no matter who it was. I mean, Bill Cosby, obviously at that time and still today, is in a position of power. I mean, we have to admit, he's America's dad. This is somebody that I looked up to when I was watching The Cosby Show when I was younger. And this was a very, very hard case for the DA to try. But the thing that we have to understand is it goes back to the victim. It's the DA's job to tell her story. And I think in retrying this case, that, you know, it goes to show that this is about Andrea and not about the DA here in this case.
I want to go back to the night in question because, like you said, this all has to do with the testimony of the victim. And Carissa, you know, Constant basically says that she declined Cosby's casual advances twice, and that the former employee of the basketball program at Temple University, Cosby's alma mater, actually spoke about herself paralyzed and unable to fight him off the night she took those pills, allegedly, and that he convinced her were safe herbal supplements. And here's what she said in the courtroom. I wasn't able to fight in any way. I wanted it to stop. In my head, I was trying to get my hands to move or my legs to move, but I was frozen. Now, Constance says that she's willing to take the stand again. That is powerful testimony. Do you believe she should?
Absolutely, she should. You know, she's speaking on behalf of the other individuals who stated that Cosby did the same exact thing. You know, she's sitting here, and that testimony in itself is extremely, extremely powerful. We have to go back to the fact that, you know, there are 3 charges that were made here in this case. And there were 3 charges that the jury had to convict on a unanimous basis. And so, you know, the fact that she had this testimony, it was emotional. She informed her mother about it. You know, that's somebody else who's there to back her up in her claims. And so she's a very strong woman to proceed forward with this case. And, you know, she's doing a great job.
Stephanie Willis, Carissa, go ahead, real quick, final word, then we got to go.
I could just speak to the other side of that slightly.
Sure.
You know, there are inconsistencies. I know that night started out with some necking, and it's he said, she said on whether or not anything was consensual. It's not like he slipped anything into her drink. She, you know,
but he gave her a pill, though. He gave her a pill. That's something that we need to remember. He gave her a pill.
All right, Carissa Kranz, thank you very much. Stephanie Willis, we appreciate you both coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.